Hello, in this video we're going to be talking about muscles of the upper limb part 2. Let's not waste any of your time. Let's get right to it. Now, in part 1 of this series, we talked about muscles, and we kind of went down the back a little bit. Today, we'll be going down more the front. But again, just to recognize that what we're talking about for this upper limb, most of them originate or attach to the axial skeleton, so they're called axial muscles. Things like the pectoral grooves, the lats, and we talked about those somewhat in the previous video, but we're going to continue to look at things, look at the delts, biceps, the pectoral area as we talk about the upper limb part 2. Alright, so kind of getting the fun started. Looking at the delts, those are the shoulders. Muscles of the shoulder. Of course, you got the big one that you can just kind of feel there, but there's a lot more as far as going on. That's the deltoids, and you can kind of see that in the far diagram, the one's kind of halfway down the screen. You can see the delt right there, the clavicle and the sternum and everything. And we've got a screen set up complete to talk about the rotator cuff. As a football coach all those years, and distant memories now, but one of the things it seemed like we had fairly common. I mean, you got the knee stuff, the ACLs and that kind of stuff. It's really a focal point of that, and obviously concussions and things. But one of the things that would pop up on a regular basis is the rotator cuff injuries. And those are, all injuries are pretty prominent. When a person is on the field, kind of laying down, or noticeable injury. But the old rotator cuff, the sagging shoulder and the arm, and the pain associated with that. That's a memory that's still pretty strong. But we'll talk about the rotator cuff injuries and the muscles associated with that. But we look at enough diagrams of just computer generated pic. Here's obviously a real muscle, and you can kind of see that this is obviously the back. If you're not sure how I can tell that, if you look in the upper part, you can kind of see the vertebrae a little bit there. But you can see in the upper, kind of towards the left of the head there, you can kind of see the back of the ear. And the only way you can see the back of the ear is if you're looking at the back of the person. You can see the elbow down there as well. But get the delts on the side, you can see that muscle in the tricep there. And you can see those lats and that just kind of that sheet of covering. And again, that's not just one big muscle. That's a series of muscles, and of course, then you can see the lats there as well. And more importantly, you can see a lot of the connective tissue. You can see a lot of the tendons and that stuff as well. So that's kind of a decent look at muscles, live muscles, kind of a thing. Alright, so I mentioned the rotator cuff. There's 4 muscles, and you can see that's kind of associated with the rotator cuff, and all designed to kind of keep that, the movement, or I should say not keep that, but facilitate, help the movement, hold things kind of in place. But the supranatus, the infranatus, the tres minor, and the subcularis kind of come up with the acronym of SITS, S-I-T-S. But those are the 4 muscles that are part of that. Anyway, so when one of those injures, then and not attached anymore, and we're going to show you a picture on the next screen of where those four, but they're kind of all surrounds the scapula here, and with that movement, and when one of them is no longer or is injured to the point where it's not fully functional, then maybe it sags down, maybe it pulls forward a little bit. It's kind of like if you can imagine if you had I will take my dog Avery, the 80-pound pit bull lab that thinks she's a giant T-Rex at times. But if you had 4 different ropes attached to her, you kind of wanted to control her movement a little bit. And this is obviously not a great PETA situation, but just a non-injury metaphor using a dog and rope. So you had 4 ropes, kind of attached to her collar, one pulling left and right, and one pulling up, one pulling down. And if she's, there's a squirrel out somewhere, or, a little girl riding on a bike, she's an equal opportunity barker, and going crazy around the yard. So if you had those 4 ropes, and you were kind of controlling her movement, but she's pulling and straining, she's wanting to go bark at the mailman or whoever, and then one of those ropes broke, you would still have the other 3 that would be, working, but based on whichever one broke, then Avery's movement could be a little more in that direction. You wouldn't have that restraint. So if one on the left broke, then you could move a little more to the right, and vice versa, up and down, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of that idea of being around the shoulder bones, and then when one of them isn't working, the sag kind of leans in the opposite direction. But here's those muscles we were talking about. You can see them here. The supinatus on top, and the infranatus, on the back side, trace minor on the back side, and scapularis on the front. Those kind of 4 working in tandem to get that movement and motion of the shoulder. And one last treat for you. Another actual muscle, live muscle kind of look, but you can see the pectoralis and the deltoids there, and the top of the brachia, top of the biceps, the 2 long and short heads leading down into those. But we don't have obviously the benefit of looking at actual muscle like that, muscle tissue. So anytime we can, we want to take advantage of that. Alright, so that's our video over muscles of the upper limb, part 2. We'll come back together next time. We're going to be talking about the arm. We'll see you then.